rebels and troublemakers to stand out. Marginalized with voices making us so proud. For identity in the industry, we all shout. So many women empowered making them.
I don't know what happened to black ADs. They're all very calm, unlike their screaming counterparts.
Sometimes we got to operate in the world a little differently than other people.
Word. Exactly.
Not in the production office.
I know, and I love how we're all agreeing.
Rubber Panther, freedom still the anthem. She paved and made her own way to Hollywood, yelling N1. System try to charge her for speaking
Welcome
up.
to the WOCU Entertainment Pod, how Hollywood works or doesn't. We are very excited. Y'all know what we do. I'm very excited because not only do we have first ADs, we have all Black first ADs today. And so we're going to talk about it. We know you guys have seen it in the credits. We're going to talk about what they do, how they're a pain in the ass to us UPMs and line producers. No, I didn't mean that. I love my first ADs.
They are our friends. They're like cousins.
Yeah, cousins.
I hear you, Courtney. I hear you. And finally, we have Scott Sudeth. Just so you know, so I have been lucky enough. I have worked with Gail on a project of Nicci's for Hulu. And then Scott was the first AD for the bonus content of Cross. And it was Nicci who hired him. Nicci was like, Cheryl, we need Scott. And I was like, I don't know Scott, but I guess we need Scott. So I guess we need Scott.
Yes, we need Scott. Scott's always like very calm and nice. And you gotta love Scott. Gail is very calm. I don't know what happened to black ADs. They're all very calm, unlike their screaming counterparts.
Nicci, are you calling? Are you calling? Ooh,
Well, you know, sometimes we got to operate in the world a little differently than other people. You know.
Word. Exactly.
I love
Not
this.
in the production office.
I know, and I love how we're all agreeing. So I am going to start off with Courtney. Hey, Courtney. So Courtney and Franklin. Hey, girl. Originally from Gary, Indiana, and now based in Los Angeles. Courtney is a seasoned episodic TV director and first AD director with over 20 years of experience. She's worked on a wide variety of culture-shifting shows like The Sex Lives of College Girls, Insecure, Silicon Valley, and Ugly Betty. A proud member of the DGA since 2003, Courtney has earned a DGA award and nomination for her work on When We Vote and Lincoln Heights Directors Team. Recently, she ran the set of the 2024 Billboard Music Awards Shaboozey performance. Girl, I love me some Shaboozey. Anyway, Courtney is also an award-winning producer and writer of the suspense horror short film Nnani and serves as a mentor for those looking to break into the TV and film industry. She's deeply involved in several DGA-supported peer mentorship programs, including the Directors Initiative, the Squad, the Women's Steering Committee, and the Learning Tree, which is the African American Steering Committee.
Wait, are we changing those names now that we can't have DEI committees? Did we change them to the Squad and the Learning Tree?
No, those are mentorship programs that are based on the steering committees. Nothing has changed. The names are the same in terms of women steering and the various diversity committees.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification. Outside of her professional work, she's the proud auntie to 8 nieces and nephews. She attributes her success to a sense of humor, a focus on storytelling, and a knack for managing both up and down. Shout out to Courtney. Yay.
Boom.
Boom.
Hey, everybody.
Mic drop. Next up, we have Gail Shan, Jamaican born and Brooklyn raised. Gail is a seasoned first AD with 25 years of experience in the film industry. After receiving her BA in psychology from Northland College in Wisconsin, Gail served in AmeriCorps in San Diego before moving to LA to pursue her passion for film. What started as a lighting class in San Diego evolved into a successful career, beginning as a PA in music videos and commercials. Now a proud member of the DGA, Gail has worked on major campaigns and projects for brands like Nike, Target, Beats, and Netflix across the US, Mexico, and Europe. Beyond her AD work, Gail is dedicated to community building as a co-facilitator for a local BIPOC group at her Unitarian Universalist Church. She is also a proud mother and currently working towards becoming a death doula. By the way, I love that. I love that. I could have used one when my mom was passing away. Next up, we have Austin Davoren. Originally from New York, Austin Davoren is a Rasta-loving, chess-playing first AD who approaches scheduling like a game of chess. One move, one strip at a time. With his hair reaching all the way to the ground, if you ask, Austin keeps it under wraps at work, mostly to avoid impromptu touch requests. When he's not ADing on shows like The Cleaning Lady and Swagger, Austin's dive into new ways to be better at his craft, laughing at work and outside of it, and staying connected to his family. Though he skipped the social media bubble, he sometimes wonders what it would be like to join the frenzy. Well, you have joined now, Austin. One thing's for sure, he's all about people, sports, and making sure the schedule runs like clockwork, whether it's domestic or international. And last up, and I will say that Scott Student was the last one to send over his bio because he doesn't listen to UPNs. Scott Sudeth, a sixth-generation native of Pasadena, California, has been immersed in the arts from a young age. After earning a BA in English from Morehouse College in 1993, he returned to Los Angeles and began his career in the motion picture and television industry. Scott started as an intern on Class Act and stunt performer on South Central, later working as a lighting technician, grip, production assistant, and coordinator. He's also produced several short films and co-produced the feature She's Got a Plan. A DGA member since 2008, Scott is an active assistant director and serves on the African American Steering Committee. Outside of production, he's been treasurer of the Sudeth Holiday Foundation for 10 years and chair of the advisory committee for the DEI Collective at Arts Center College of Design, supporting underrepresented storytellers. And ladies and gentlemen of Spottable, that is all our Black first ADs in Hollywood. Give it up to them. We're gonna talk our shit today.
Well, I mean, there are more Black ADs in Hollywood. It's just these are the ones that I wanted to talk to. And I believe actually Austin's in Atlanta, right? Austin?
Yes, I'm currently in Atlanta. I live in LA, but I'm currently in Atlanta right now.
So my first question is, what is the one phrase you never want to hear on set again? And why is it, hey, I've got an idea?
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah, look, we're in the idea business, but after you've prepped everything of all the ideas you could possibly have, a new idea is not what you want to hear because you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, agreed. Either that or can we go back?
Yes. Yeah, that's a great one.
Those are awesome.
Okay, so a lot of the people in the group don't know how Hollywood works that are listening. So I would love for you guys to explain what an assistant director does without using the word herding cats.
I mean, I like to explain to people that I take a script, I break it down to all its elements and make it the most efficient way to film it. And then when we're filming it, I run all the people and things necessary to get it done. I never use the term herding cats, but I like that. But maybe it's just because I personally dislike cats. So that would never be my reference. But it certainly can seem like herding cats in some occasion.
I kind of say the same thing, but I tell folks it's a lot of ego management.
Yes, yeah.
And making sure that you don't piss anyone off, but in some ways piss everyone off so that it's equal.
Yeah.
So you guys are like chaos coordinators.
That's for sure.
That I use organizing chaos. Yes.
Yeah, I use crisis management.
Yeah, as a UPM, I don't want to hear the word crisis on set, Courtney. A crisis to me equals money.
And see, that's the thing. You never will because I manage it. That's the brilliance of a great first AD.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the weirdest or funniest way someone has misunderstood your job? Like, I know when I was still second ADing, everybody thought I was like the director's assistant rather than an assistant director. And so like my mom thought I got coffee for directors.
You didn't? I mean,
no, that's what the PAs were for. Actually, I did. Yeah, I started off as a PA. I know one of my first jobs was with Gail on a Bow Wow video when he had stopped using the lil.
Right. Right.
Nice. He was adult Bow Wow?
Adult Bow Wow. But
Wow.
when you tell people you're an assistant director, have you ever had like a weird moment where they didn't know, like they really thought something was different about your job than what it actually was?
I mean, no one knows what the job actually is to begin with. But yeah, assistant is the biggest one, that they think you're an assistant to someone and not a fully formed person on the crew with responsibilities.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I've had strangers walk up to me when I'm directing background in a very public space thinking I'm just directing traffic.
Nice.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I know it's in California, but first assistant directors are technically the ones who are responsible for the set. So if anything goes wrong, they're the ones who everybody sees, which is why very first day they start off with a safety meeting, which is always fun.
And if anything goes right, they never get any credit.
That's pretty accurate.
Very true. Very true.
All right. When you guys started out, what was the original plan? Was it to be an AD? I know a lot of people that, became ADs had started out and like, oh, I was going to be like a gaffer, or I was going to go into art department. And then something around their PAing days were like, oh no, I want to run this shit.
Yeah. I mean, like for me, I started as an electrician in a grip for my first, maybe I kind of split that between coordinating game shows. And I realized that cable was heavy and lights are hot. And I saw this cat walking around with a gold fold and a walkie, and I said, "That's so much lighter than the cable. I think I want that job." So, but that was years into it. My goal as an AD was always as a road to produce, to learn the elements and what it takes to actually get it done. And it's a long road, as we all know, and you don't always get to where you're going when you want to get there. But that was my course, was picking something bigger to chew on, as opposed to just setting lights and creating the mood.
Nice. Yeah, that stuff is heavy. And it's all about what's the easiest job. And of course, we know how difficult our job can be. It's not easy, but it's more brain heavy lifting than physical heavy lifting. So
it does require you to stand in extreme conditions outside all the time.
That is true. That is true. I've worked in 100-degree heat for multiple days straight, negative 20 degrees for multiple days straight. So yeah, it does require a certain physical fortitude as well. And of course, my brain still has to work during that time, right? in running the set. But I'll say, I set out to be a director. So I'm, happy to say that I reached that goal after many years, because it is or can be a long road. But I got into assistant directing because it was closest to what I had learned to do in college, which was stage managing. So I ended up being part of the DGA training program. I hadn't been a set PA in Hollywood, but I had been a set PA on a feature in Jackson, Mississippi, where I went to school. So immediately I was like, oh, this combines my, ability to communicate and to work with different people and the various departments. I definitely saw myself as a producer early on. Nice. Somebody said they were in Jackson last week. Why? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so, assistant directing was something that sort of combined all the things that I was good at. So I think that's what essentially led me towards that path. And I will say all those things lead me to being a good director as well, because then, you know, you're able to combine all those things to tell a great story. And I think that's what most of us strive for in whatever role we're in, right?
Absolutely. Austin, what did you want to start out? When you started out, what did you want to be?
I started through music videos back in the day, and I wanted to be a music video director and all that stuff. I came up like with Chris Robinson and Jesse Terrell and all those guys back in the day out of New York. But then I ended up getting into TV because I did a movie when I moved to LA, and I was a set PA on some movie. I think it was called Gas or something. I can't remember. It was so long ago. And I liked the AD world, and I started to go that way and figured I could direct later on. And I just met a lot of great ADs like Warren Gray and other people like him, the old school guys. And it was fun. It was fun. And I, like I said, I like playing chess. And, once I learned how to do those schedules and stuff as a PA, because I didn't get into the training program and stuff, so when you come in the way I came in your 600 days, you really want to be an AD, you have to learn it on your own versus from my understanding with the trainee, they show you how to make schedules and they show you this, they have all these classes. For someone like me, I had to ask the other ADs to help me and show me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got there, because it's not like, once you get your 600 days, you all of a sudden know everything as an AD. So it was like going to school again. So and I loved it, and I just continue to just go for it.
Gail?
For me, I moved to Los Angeles after living in San Diego and got my bachelor's, and I did not want to go to grad school. So I took this class about lighting for television and film and had such a wonderful experience that I said, all right, let's just move to Hollywood, not knowing what was coming next. And I started off actually wanting to be a grip, and I was so close to getting my days in local AD. And then an AD said, no, you're going to come be an AD, and decided to mentor me. Told me, why don't you go run second camera on a music video? Next thing I know, I was just like, I enjoy this a lot. So it just it stuck with me.
For everybody, local AD is the IATSE grip local in Hollywood. Okay, what is your AD superpower? Like, can you predict the weather, or do you know when an actor is about to have a meltdown? Do you know when a director is about to have a meltdown? Like, what's your superpower?
Yeah, definitely reading the room is my superpower, and predicting the breakdowns, so that you can get ahead of it. I'm definitely good at that. And I will say making a schedule that I pretty much stick to. And it is the thing where, you can't make everyone happy. And they say in negotiation, everyone leaves getting a little something that they wanted, but not everything they wanted. And so, making a schedule that pleases as many people as possible, I think is also a superpower of mine. So that's really fun. And I certainly have had actors. I had an actor have a panic attack on a shoot that I could sort of see coming. And so trying to get ahead of that, so that we could manage the rest of our day. And thankfully she recovered and we were able to finish that scene and not drop it, which is what my producer wanted us to do. But I knew the person well enough that I knew that, she could recover and we could actually get it done. And knowing people is one of the skill sets that it took to be able to read that was possible, that we could do that safely.
Oh, yeah. You guys actually like people. That's so nice.
I have to agree. I think reading the room, and as far as superpower, I think having physically set up lighting setups and moved cable and scaffolding and all that stuff, I have an innate idea of how much time it takes, which helps with building the schedule out so that it's realistic in the hours that you have. I think that muscle memory doesn't go away once you realize that 3 cameras, it's going to take some time because you're looking from 3 different angles, and you got to make sure that everything is lit evenly for each camera, and that also takes time. And then there's the futz time, the let me fix this before we go. I want to make this adjustment, and kind of figuring all that into the schedule as you're putting the strips in order helps me make a manageable day.
If I can ask a question real quick, can we talk about building on a schedule? So when you guys get a script, so for those who don't know, first ADs are the ones who build the schedule. They're the ones, they get handed a script and we talk about how many days. From a producer standpoint, how many days we want to shoot the script in. How do you guys begin when you get the script and a producer or line producer is like, we need it in X amount of days? How do you begin to take that script and turn it into a shooting schedule?
The first schedule I always do is I do it real. I know that, like, for episodic, some shows are the ones done in 8 days, 9 days, but I tell them I schedule with whoever's written. So if it's going to end up being 9 days or 10 days, I show the realness, and that's what I think we should do or supposed to do. So then the line producer can then talk to the showrunner or the writers, the showrunner being the one that's the head of all the writers, to see how we could fix this, because one thing I like about line producers to me is also like a chess thing, where if they get X amount of dollars for each episode, they may be able to pull some money from episode 2 to make sure episode 1 gets everything that it needs, because it's usually big if you come back for a season or the pilot or a second season. So they can figure that out. But I'm always honest with the first one. And it's always interesting because sometimes writers will put, for instance, I'll use Courtney. I'm going to Courtney's house. And so that's one scene. While I'm at Courtney's house, I go into the bathroom. That's another scene. And they don't slug that. So sometimes they even miss scenes. So that could also add to the schedule when things aren't slugged correctly or put out correctly on the script. So I just think it's the best way to go. Just be honest. You got to be honest. You can't, the line producer wants this and wants that, but you got to be honest. At the end of the day, they're looking at you. So it's, and I think you got to be honest with the director and tell them, and as well as the DP, that's the team. You got to get it all together. And so we're all on the same page. That it's supposed to be 9 days, but it's really 10. How do we fix this? So
I love that. It depends on the show, but first of all, I read it as the audience, right? I don't read it to schedule it. I read it just to enjoy it. And that's me personally. But I will say, while I'm doing that, I'm picking out things in the script that I know will need a little extra care, right? Whether it's like an action scene or a really emotional scene, stuff like that I know will need extra time. I too like to schedule stuff in the reel, but there's a world where I used to work for a producer that said, the work will shrink or expand to fit the allotted time, which I thought was an interesting concept. And also I thought he was full of shit, because I'm just like, no, time is time. Like, it doesn't, like, only so much can fit in that. But I have found that to be true in some occasions. So there's times where I will build a schedule that to someone may look impossible, but I know within that schedule what, and in talks with the director, what can be done faster or what may need more time. But essentially, it's just putting the like things together. And Austin said something very important about if, you're reading it and sometimes things aren't slugged correctly. And for those listening, if you have, a script and every time a character moves into a different location, that potentially is the crew and everyone moving to a different location if they're not set up next to each other, which whenever you've got to move is more time, right? And so, for those that are writers out there, it's very important because, the script is essentially our template, right? And so the more specific that can be, the easier it makes us to schedule it and make a more realistic schedule of how long it's going to take to shoot it. But I agree with Austin that it is like chess. And I've had the opportunity to be a production manager and to be a producer. And, things do shift around, and sometimes you got to leave it to your producer or your UPM to tell you where stuff can shift. but it's up to you to sort of lay out what the reality is based on the script that you've been given.
Now, Gail, who has a little bit different of a career trajectory, because Gail works in commercials, and so doing your schedules is quite a bit different.
Yes, quite a bit. Usually by the time the job comes to me, those days are set, and there's very little that I can do to try to make any changes once I see what we're actually shooting. So I'm working not off of a script most of the times, but off of creatives that comes from advertising agencies and is approved by clients and goes through a director and storyboards. And yeah, so by the time I get it, it's like, you got 2 days and this is what we have to shoot. We have to make it all work in this 2 days period.
And most of the time, not a script, it's storyboards.
It's storyboards. And most of the times we do make it work. We figure it out.
We do make it work. Yes. Even when there's craziness afoot.
Exactly.
So we had an incident on when we were shooting the bonus content of Cross. And Scott, I want you to talk about this. So we had everything scheduled. And then Big Daddy Cross came to me and they were like, as you guys know, I've already told you, Alona Tall is in the bonus content. And they were like, we need her. We shot right before they started shooting the second season of Cross. Like literally we stopped and then the actors got on a plane and headed, but they needed her for, I think, wardrobe or something, Scott.
Wardrobe fittings.
Yes, yeah. In Canada. So Scott, I came to you and I'm like, hey, Scott, we gonna lose Alona.
Yeah, we shot for 10 days. And so over the weekend of the first week, Alona needed to be in Canada for wardrobe fittings. And so Cheryl went to Scott and said, we need to lose Alona on Friday. And Friday was Alona Day.
Yeah. And, you know, honestly, I can't remember how we got out of that. But we did. Like you shift things around, you move it where there's space and you make space where there isn't any. I mean, it's a balancing act. Because, you know, if you have to move something if it's an actor heavy day and you have to reschedule that entire day, then all of that kind of slops over into other days. Because you can't get it all done in one day. So you have to break it up in smaller chunks. How did we fix
That's
that?
exactly what you did. You took her heavier day and scheduled it over the time. And we shot with the surprise guest, which I can't still say, that's in there.
That's
and
right.
Bobby Trick.
That's right.
And that's how we did it. And I will tell everybody. So I tried to fight for it. So I was talking to the line producer of Big Daddy Cross. And Big Daddy Cross let me know I could reschedule it or I could not have her. Like there was no, like they pulled the we Big Daddy Cross, y'all little baby Cross. We not doing that. And I did have a panic moment because it was all Alona. Like it was so heavy her. And I'm just like, so I came to Scott. I'm not gonna lie. I was a little bit panicked, a little anxious, and Scott very calmly just took her heavy day and scheduled it throughout. You made the day before she left heavier and the 2 days when she got back heavier.
Yeah, and we got it all done. You know, there's I feel like there's always a solution. I remember a quote, we create solutions, we solve problems, we answer questions. As a going back to what we do. So that was a problem that we needed to solve, and there was no other way but to do that. So, you know, sometimes you're backed into a solution that you haven't thought of at the top when you're actually scheduling it. So sometimes it works out. You know, hopefully it works out all the time, but sometimes it doesn't, and then you have to come up with a different solution.
So here's my next question. How do you guys handle when a director just refuses to abide by your schedule? And I know this specifically from Scott, because I think we worked on one of our worst jobs, which strangely enough was kind of fun, but we ended up at a summer camp in the mountains in October where it was freezing cold. constantly waiting for snow to happen because it was the end of October into November. And we would have the entire shot schedule or set up, and the director would show up and be like, yeah, I'm not vibing this right now. Can we start with number 3? Number 3 on the schedule.
Yes. There was one morning in particular where I had our lead actress first up, and our director had, on his way up the hills on Monday, decided to change her call time without my knowledge, which put that entire day, we were behind the 8 ball that entire day. And I had to have words with them and say, your job is to direct the actors. My job is to get them here. So, don't change my schedule. Don't change my schedule, because it's gonna affect your picture, and your ability to get things done. That was contentious, Nicci. I actually saw a picture of that the other day, and it brought back some agita. It was, yeah.
You were triggered, Scott.
Yeah, I was totally triggered.
I just got a residual check from that job for 28 cents, and I was triggered.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't do it anymore. But
he did, because I worked with him on another job and he did the same thing.
Oh.
He did not learn.
Okay, well that's not good to know.
Yeah, I had a producer do that. I was working with Cicely Tyson, rest in power. And, she was in her 90s. So you had to be very specific on how you communicated with her so that she could be prepared. And for some reason, our UPM, communicated something to her that threw her completely off. And, I had to talk to her, and she was hilarious. And she said, well, the man said we doing XYZ. and I said, yes, ma'am, he did. But unfortunately, he was incorrect. And this is what we're actually doing. And I later, talked to the UPM, who was super embarrassed. And it honestly just made him look silly. But he said, from now on, I'll let you communicate with her. And I said, I think that's best. Right? Because it essentially upended our entire day of how we needed to schedule something. And, the reality is we all have very specific jobs. And even though we sometimes think we can do other people's jobs, it's best that we stay in our lane, right? So that the day can get done. But Nicci, to answer your question about a director, kind of going off script, no pun intended, or pun intended. I had a director who just refused to, express anything we were doing ahead of time. And in TV, oftentimes, directors will have shot lists. They'll have an idea of their blocking, and it just helps me be able to direct the crew faster so that we can stay ahead of what we're doing to make our day, right? And so this director, we ended up having to drop scenes every day because I'm trying to anticipate what I think she wants without her actually communicating it. And what was really frustrating in terms of like feeling like I was being gaslit, after a while, it was like, she was like, well, what do you think? What else do you think I can do to help this situation? And I'm just like, be prepared. Like, are you serious right now? Like, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I've expressed to you everything that I need to make this day go better. But by the time it got to the last day, I was very honest with her, and I said, we needed to move on to another scene. Otherwise, we weren't going to be able to shoot it. And she's like, well, I don't understand what you want me to do. And I said, oh, well, I'm going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to stop shooting this scene and we're going to start rehearsing the next one. And I think you understand what you want us to do, but you just don't want to do it. And that's fine. We're moving on. And I had this conversation with the blessing from our producer, who, for whatever reason, didn't want to have the conversation with the director. But it was extremely frustrating and I couldn't understand, this is when I'm like, are you fucking with me? Like, are you like, like it was just such a joke that I was just like, I know you're not stupid, right? But like she kept playing this, I don't get it, and I was just like, I'm not playing this game with you, lady. Like, but it was extremely frustrating,
Gail, what's the worst thing you've had to do, and why is it the client's fault? Because we know it's the client's fault. For those of us who work in, I work in commercials and music videos and TV and film. So commercials and music videos are actually commercials are client driven even more than director driven. Yeah. And so we are at the whim of a bunch of creatives that don't actually work in production. And Gail, I know you've had those days.
Oh, yes. What's the worst thing I've had to do? I don't know. Had to save an entire living room set on the beach as the tide was coming in, and we're running to save the actors, the camera, the equipment, because, they insisted what time of day they wanted to shoot it. It was taken out of the hands of the director and the DP. I don't know how even else to say those words. Gosh, I don't know. There's so many things that come directly from the client versus the director. In our world, the vision isn't the director. It is the client. It is the creatives. So they are basically the ones who end up directing something, to be truthful. Yeah, it's a interesting change.
I remember, and mind you, everyone, this was like 25 some odd years ago, but my most vivid memory of our first job was running around the set to keep the one actor from smoking on the stage, because back then you could still smoke, or they had just stopped people from smoking like next to doors. Plus we were shooting in Vegas, and this one actor just kept wanting to smoke on set. Eddie Griffin. And we had all of the PAs on walkie, and anybody that would see him would be like, get him to like move out of the door. But somehow I got assigned to like be the person moving him out of the door. But I kept hearing Gail on walkie going, he's in the corner, about to light up. She was like my tattletale on set.
Just calling out so everyone could catch him. Don't let him light the cigarette. Don't let him light up.
That was such a weird job, but so much fun. But shooting in Vegas is a beast on its own. Have you guys ever used walkie speak in your real life? Rolling, cut, copy. I tend to say copy a lot.
I use copy every
definitely
day.
Copy. Yeah.
Definitely copy. Yeah. I think for me, like I won't say the 10-2. I won't. Oh, I know. I will say I'm gonna go hit the head. Yeah, well, I will say that when I'm with my family or whatever. So, oddly enough.
I've said 10-1 a couple times out in public.
Speaking of walkies, how many of you monitor when somebody says go to another channel?
All the time.
For the listeners, we have walkies. Walkies have 12 channels. Every department's assigned a channel. Production is on channel 1. Channel 2 is empty for having conversations that we don't want to have on channel 1. And as a UPM, whenever I hear somebody say go to 2, I switch because I want to know what they're talking about. Do you guys do that as well?
I don't. When I was a key, I used to. I have a little bit of an old school feel when I first. I don't use my radio unless I need to. So I'm the guy that keeps my radio off. There's usually a PA close to me. They tell me what's going on. If I have to say something, I turn my radio on. I wait a second. I say it. Wait for my response, and I turn it off. I know my abilities of always trying to pay attention, and I always try to focus on the DP and the director when I work. So having the earpiece in my ear and hearing other conversations sometimes could throw me off, and I may miss something important. So That's why I operate that way.
Yeah, I typically go to whatever channel, and then as a side note, if there's an open channel, I'll assign it to just our staff and have a code so that no one knows what channel we're going to when I say go to 12, but 12 is actually 15. So I'll throw people off so they can't follow our conversations, but I tend to eavesdrop whenever I have the opportunity, just to get an idea of what could be a problem coming up that they haven't communicated yet.
You know, me and Cheryl are UPMs, and we now know this about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of a mix between Austin and Scott. There are times when, you know, I don't want to eavesdrop, but I tell people I'm a professional spy. As a first AD, everyone expects you to know everything, but sometimes people don't want to tell you information, which is so bizarre. And so I'm always listening. You know, I can hear the grip in a corner 30 feet away. I can hear, I can hear an actor, talking about something. So I am always listening, but I do agree with Austin. In order to, sort of concentrate on the next steps ahead, you got to tune that stuff out, and just, look at what's in front of you with your director and your DP. But yeah, I'm always listening.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much what everyone has said. And yeah, always listening. I was going to answer that as part of the our superpower, is that my hearing has just become so tuned that I can hear the dog barking 2 blocks away. I mean, but also, yeah, listening on conversations, which means I switch the channel, and just like Scott, I have a code with my second AD and my PAs of which is our secret channel to have our private conversations.
You guys have private conversations, and I didn't need to know that, because now I'm like going to be like snooping.
That's funny. I have very few private conversations, because my theory is, if I know it, everybody needs to know it, because everyone has a level of responsibility to help us make our day. So
the reason I snoop is because a lot of people forget that in the office, we need to know that information as well.
Agreed. Yeah. So it's one of those things where I'm like, unless it's really someone's private something that, the world doesn't need to know, meaning, a personal matter, that, let's say, the cast is dealing with. I've worked with cast members who, their parent passed away, but they decided that they still wanted to work that day. And so, everybody may not need to know that, right? So that they can focus on their day. Or I had an actor who was pregnant and, didn't want people to know about it, but obviously, just to make sure that she was healthy and safe, some of us needed to know, right? So ultimately, for me, there are no secrets, and I'm definitely talking to the office, because I don't want to get caught with doing something that maybe could have been avoided, or maybe there was a better way. Because although I think I know everything, I know that I don't, right? And I think for me, that's always a takeaway in whatever position you're in. There's always a piece of information you don't know that can help you make a better decision. And I think that for line producers and UPMs too, that if there's information they need to know that will help them make a better decision, that ultimately will help me in running the set.
I have a question from the audience. Sean wants to know who your favorite talent or celebrity that you've worked with is. If you don't want to say, you can say who your favorite is, but I also want to know who the worst person that you worked with is. And if you don't want to use their names, that's fine, but tell us why they're the worst person.
I'm gonna say, for me, sometimes when you have a lightweight famous director, or famous actor that becomes a director, sometimes that could be problematic. I had one of those. I won't say his name, but he was just not a nice person. He was, he was always performing. Was always performing, always loud mouthing, being rude to the crew, and he has a little bit of a name. If I said his name, everyone would know who he is. I'm not sure my son would know, who was 14, because it was before my son's time, in theory, not in theory, but he was. So, but sometimes when you have a director, or like I said, I was an actor and they have a big ego and they're lightweight famous, that could sometimes be problematic. Not all the time, but I did have a bad experience with one, and it just wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun at all for the 7 days that we had to work with them.
You know, actors are like my babies. You don't want to say you got a favorite because, but you always have a favorite, right?
Okay, who is somebody that you enjoy working with, that you enjoyed working with, that you were like, oh, how about like somebody that you thought was going to be a problem that wasn't?
Well, I don't come in with preconceived notions. So I don't come in thinking somebody's going to be a problem. But I will say, and for those that know me, there's no secret in that Viola Davis is one of my favorite people to work with. And I did 5 seasons of How to Get Away with Murder. And ultimately, if you come in prepared and on time, and you're a decent human being, meaning that you don't talk to people crazy, you're gonna be my favorite, because that means I don't have to worry about you, right? I don't have to manage the crazy that's in your wake. you know and she's somebody that had a great sense of humor, but she was prepared, focused, and always on time. Like, you could set a watch by her, and I appreciated that. In terms of worst, and so I'm going to say this in being funny. The first movie that I worked on as a DGA trainee was Barbershop in Chicago. And, that had an ensemble cast. And at the time, we had Sean Patrick Thomas, I believe his name is, right? And I don't know if he had done like Save the Last Dance and all that by then, but people knew who he was. For me, I ran base camp, meaning I managed the actors, and I nicknamed him Sean Ninja Thomas, because he never was where I needed him to be. Like, he always disappeared. And at that time, we were shooting in February in Chicago in negative weather. So once I get everybody onto the stage thinking, oh, I can get onto the stage and get out of my snowsuit for like 30 minutes or whatever, he would always come back outside to his trailer, or, he would always. And so for me, I thought that was insane. I was like, how is he getting into his trailer? Like, is he like being like Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise style? Like, this dude is like crazy. And now it's funny, but at the time I was pissed. I was pissed about it, for sure.
I'd have to say my favorite person to work with, rest in peace, was John Singleton. He was like eternally creative and always supportive of everyone on his staff. I mean, didn't matter if you were a PA, if you were, the lowest on the totem pole, you were still a person and whose opinion mattered. So that was my favorite. I won't name a name for my worst, but I'll just name the show and then you can guess. I did 2.5 seasons of House of Cards.
Nice.
And there was an actor. Yeah, there was an actor who, a lot of press happened in that last season, and everything that you may have heard was something that either I witnessed or someone that I know witnessed. And hey, there's a name. And so like on that staff, we were really AD heavy. But I was the only Black AD on our staff. And over those 2.5 seasons, I cannot name a sentence that person said to me specifically, like, did not speak to me at all, purposefully. So like, even when spoken to, would like pass off the answer to one of his assistants. So,
although to be fair, you probably got lucky for that.
oh well, yeah, and on a side note, so on that I couldn't grow a beard before that show, but I realized that the entire crew had beards for a reason. Long beard, especially if they'd been there for a while. The entire crew, grip, electric camera, hair, makeup, it didn't matter what department, all the men had long beards
That's
because they knew that
hilarious.
that was a turnoff.
Ah.
So yeah, I magically grew a beard, and that's the first time that I could actually grow a beard. It was like magic.
The ancestors let you grow hair.
Yeah,
To
yeah.
save you.
It was like the Force.
Oh. See,
Oh my.
Scott can spill the tea because it's been spilled by everybody else.
That's publicly available tea.
Right. Public information, right?
Gail, what about you? You have worked with celebrities up and down, but not in their normal kind of format. You work with them when they're coming to you for a couple of days to do a commercial.
That's correct. If a couple of days, I get celebrities where I get the note of, you only have this celebrity for 4 hours. And you've got to make all the shots work.
Yeah. That's great.
I would say my favorite celebrity, and I will always say, is Dolly Parton. She walked onto a set, and from the moment she stepped out of the car, every single person got a look straight in the eye, a handshake, and a thank you. I'm talking about the security guard in the parking lot, every single background. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Absolutely.
Oh, that makes me happy.
And that is why we call her Saint Dolly.
That's why. Worst celebrity. So, like I said, we get celebrities for a short amount of time, so we get this preamble of what to expect, and then we try to reach out to other crew members and say, "Hey, have you worked with that person before? What are they really like?" So we can get some information. And when you get the preamble of expect them to be, mean, or expect them to be yellers, and expect them to, that kind of stuff, you just kind of standing by with the anticipation. And when they turn out to be worse than you were expecting, then you just go, oh my gosh, I never want to work with this person ever again. So there is one who we expected it to be hard, and then their entourage landed before them, and their entourage was just terrible. Mean, started yelling and like throwing things out the trailer. This is not what she wants. And then she showed up and she was just as spectacular.
So Nicki Minaj?
I don't even know if I want to say a name, but I'm sure everyone has worked with her. She's a singer, she's an actor, and she's married. You got it right there, Sean. There you go.
Oh yeah, that one too.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I'll give a counter to this because I've worked with her too. And it was interesting because I actually worked with one of her husbands. I'll say I can say one of her husbands. And she showed up on that particular set and didn't speak to anybody, right? And once again, you don't have to talk to me. You're not even on my show, lady. Like you're just here visiting as far as I'm concerned. So I didn't think anything about it. But then I later did a project with her and that husband, and she was fine. I will say she was completely opposite of what I expected, but she wasn't intolerable for me, and her team wasn't intolerable for me. And that's why I say, like, everyone's got to have their own experience, right?
Speaking of teams, have you ever had a team that was worse than the celebrity they were responsible for? And mine would be Mariah Carey's team.
All the time.
She was lovely, but her team was not. Was not.
Yeah, all the time. Like, I liken it to people like to play bad cop, good cop, right? This happens all the time where, even if it's on a show, like you may have a line producer that's good cop and the UPM is bad cop, or you've got, like there's always some sort of dynamic. And so I've worked with talent who, their agents, managers are tyrants, and they think that them bullying people is the best way to get their client stuff, and I don't necessarily believe that to be true. And certainly as a first AD, like I had a manager like constantly text me because they didn't like their client's schedule. And to be honest, their client's availability is what dictated the schedule. So I was just like, I'm not talking to this dude because I'm also running a set. I've got a crane, I've got 300 people, all this stuff. But I said, why is this guy even talking to me? Right?
Why is that guy even talking to you?
And he was bona fide crazy. And maybe a week later, and when he would come on set, by the way, he would never speak to me, like didn't introduce himself or anything, but he felt that he could text me and complain and, dictate what he wanted out of the schedule. So I completely ignored him. And when he came on set and finally, I think the talent introduced him to me, he was like, "Oh, nice to meet you." Like he wasn't insane, And I'm like, "Oh, good to meet you as well." And still was like, "I'm going to ignore you if you reach out to me on the phone, though." Like that's like, I can be cordial, but it's that was one of the things that I was just like, I don't ever want to talk to this dude. And fortunately, in my role, I don't have to.
Gail, you have, again, yours is an interesting one because you sometimes get them where they have decided to do this job as a paycheck rather than a stepping stone to their Oscar or whatever. So you get them with a weird attitude a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, things happen where, yes, they've made this agreement to come in and, be this person in this commercial for this particular product. And a lot of times they have no idea what we're shooting until I talk to them. So their agent hasn't told them, the client hasn't told them, all these people way above that have had meetings and conversations and redone scripts and redrawn storyboards. And I'm the one when they show up in the day to tell them what they're doing that day. So that's interesting. And then, of course, then they'll want to change the script, change the shot, change their wardrobe. And then there goes time on my schedule.
Yeah, based on that, have you guys ever had to deal with like an actor who really didn't know what they were getting into and then when they showed up on set were like freaked out by it? For example,
Absolutely.
I worked on a music video and one of the talents, the featured talent, didn't know how to swim. But half of the music video was shot in a pool underwater with them
That's
swimming towards
right.
camera.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I will say, so the West Wing project for When We Vote, it was put together as a PR thing to get people to go to the polls. It was produced by the Obamas and brought back together the cast of the West Wing. And the producers were, I believe, live event producers. And so they were treating it like it was, PR, like they're just, they're coming in and they're doing promos, where the reality was they were coming in and we were shooting a whole episode of The West Wing that focused on democracy, right? And the West Wing episodes were, about 60 pages long, and we were shooting it in 4 days. As opposed to the original like 10, 12 days that they had shot the episode in. We were treating it like a play, as well as shooting PR spots in between. And so, in prep, I keep asking, I said, well, do the actors realize that this isn't a traditional way that, we're shooting this, that they're going to need to know 20 pages of dialogue a day, right? Like we're shooting you know, a lot of scenes, and they're like, oh yeah, they know what it is. Oh, okay. And I said, well, I really need, you know, I really would like to talk to them. And for the longest time, they didn't want to give me the talent's info. And so my favorite is when people are protecting the talent in such a way that prevents them from having information for them to A, do their job, and for B, for us to do our job, right? And so, you know, finally, I think I get the contact information for uh, Mr. Sheen, and it's his daughter who is working with him. And I call her and start to tell her what we're doing. And she says, oh, you need to talk to him. And I said, that would be preferable. Thank you. You know, and once again, letting the actors know. And right away, you know, actors are like, oh, are we going to have a teleprompter? Right? Because it's ridiculous to have to know that amount of dialogue in a day, you know, unless you've got time to prepare for it like it's a play, which we did not, right? So yeah, you know, and I had an actor like, I mean, furious. Trying to think of his name. Oh my gosh. But yeah, he, you know, he's like cussing and raising his voice and all that. And he said, you know, I'm not cussing you out, right? And I said, oh, I know, you know, I know this situation is not ideal. Let's right. But oftentimes the talent has no idea what they're doing until an assistant director informs them. And so I try to always get ahead of it when I can.
Gail, Scott.
I don't know if I can offer anything else. I think, you know.
I mean, have you had an actor come on to set and not know what was happening?
Sometimes it happens, but I think like the thing that stands out to me is actors that know what's expected, but are going to do what they want to do anyway.
Right. They pretend they don't know.
Exactly. I mean, I had an actor who would consistently show up late. He says, you can give me a call time, but I'm going to show up when I think I need to be there. And he would wrap himself and just leave for an entire season. He would, you know, if his call time was 10, he'd show up at 11:30. At one point we were shooting in a grocery store and we were turning around and he was like in the corner of what our frame was going to be. And he's like, you know something, I'm not background, I'm going home. And he hopped in his car and left the set. So like, you know, some of those things stand out more than actors not knowing, because, you know, typically our job is to make sure they know. And if they don't know, then it falls on us whether or not we were given the information to pass on or we weren't allowed to talk to them. So, you know, I make it a point to just make sure that I CYA and send them pages or send them something so they have an idea of what they're doing, whether or not they read the email. It's in their inbox. But yeah, I think it's actors taking their own liberties and doing what they want to do, regardless of what the schedule says needs to be done.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Wow. I've had the experience where actors, where an entire commercial and an actor or actually an athlete is expected to do what is their signature move, and they've recently just decided they're no longer doing that move. So the entire day is built around this athlete doing something very specific that they no longer want to be known for, and now it changes. And it becomes a huge discussion, you know, and changes into what can we actually shoot now?
We were on a job where the actress who was known for being a dancer decided 3 days before we started shooting that she didn't want to be known for being a dancer. She wanted to be taken more seriously as an actress. But there were entire dance sequences in the script that were written specifically for her. And that was fun. That was fun. That was with Scott.
Exactly.
Austin, what about you?
I've had a few of those where, especially on the commercial, like Gail was saying, I've done a few commercials, and where the talent would show up and besides not know their lines, not really know what they're doing. And it was really based around them. But at the same time where we only got 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours with this person. So I just get the producer and get, the agency involved, because as we all know, time is money. So again, we knew what the schedule was. We knew everything. And this was the surprise. So someone not in production on our side failed to tell the actor what they're doing or whatever, but someone failed to tell them, they had to explain to them. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it just doesn't. And when it doesn't, it's really never good. And you have to really then come up with something else to shoot while something else can be done, with the agency getting involved as well.
Yeah, choreography is always a big one of trying to make sure, your talent knows dance sequences or whatever. And sometimes it works out for the best, right? On The Sex Lives of College Girls, we had a Sherry Shepard was one of our guest cast. She plays the mom of one of our lead characters, and she has to do this like TikTok mom daughter dance. And it was an instance, Gail, where it's like, and you've got 2 hours to shoot the scenes with Sherry because she has to be somewhere else or whatever. And, my biggest thing for a week was like, I want to make sure Sherry knows this dance. I want to make sure Sherry knows this dance, right? And thankfully, she came on set and she knew it. So that was the best case scenario. But I was nervous because, you don't know, if the actor has learned it or how fast they can learn it. And, so sometimes it works out. But as an AD, you got to keep asking the questions and hopefully the actor knows their words or come up with something when they don't. Had another actor, older actress, for whatever reason, like a legal thing where she's got monologue upon monologue and she just could not remember the words. And God bless her, she, you could tell she was embarrassed by it. And she's like, I'm so sorry. This, it's always, oh, this doesn't happen or whatever. For whatever reason, could not remember the speech. And as an AD, once again, to come up with a solution, I said, well, we've got a monitor in this set. Can we turn it into a teleprompter? And of course, our video guy's like, yeah, give me the words. I can put it on there. And that's what we did so that we could get through our day. Otherwise, it would have never happened,
When I did Too Fast, Too Furious, John cast an actress and it's a movie about cars and driving fast. And she came to first, we had 2 weeks of rehearsal before we started shooting. And we realized on day one that she didn't know how to drive. So we actually had to teach her how to drive. Before we could actually put her in a car, we had to teach her how to drive. And then she had to learn how to drift. So like, that was a challenge that, you figure if you're going out for a role in a car movie that, you know how to drive a car, but she had never driven a car.
Oh, I assume actors don't know how to do anything.
Yes.
Okay. That's it. I'm serious. Like, it sounds funny, but whatever's in the script, I'm like, can they ride a bike? Can they drive? Can they walk in a straight line? Can they, like, I ask all these questions and people think I'm crazy in these meetings. But I'm like, somebody reach out. Are they left-handed? Are they right-handed? Do they have hands? I mean, seriously, like you'll have something like, oh, we want her in the skirt. Well, okay. Does she have, like, we want to see 2 legs. Does she have 2 legs? Like, I ask all the dumb questions because inevitably they cast folks that don't know how to do the thing.
I have to say that the amount of people from New York and London that I have worked with, that they're supposed to be driving,
and
they none of them can drive or have a license because they don't need to.
Right.
But it never occurred to anybody to ask them whether they could drive. And the actor's not going to tell you that.
Right. I mean, actors put a lot of things on their sheets to get the job. I had an actor the entire spot was taking place on a paddleboard in a lake. We get dressed and everything, push off from the lake, and this actor did not know how to paddleboard. And they were the main talent. So we're now struggling to push her back to the shore and trying to figure out how we're going to shoot this.
Did she know how to swim? Because that would be the experience. I would. We did have an actress on a job where she was supposed to swim to shore from the boat to the beach, and I had an entire water safety team and scuba divers underneath her, only to find out that she didn't know how to swim and thought the water safety team could just drag her along.
I mean, this is where you realize you have a silly job sometimes, right?
At what point At what point did you realize you were the adults on set?
I mean, probably once a day at minimum.
I mean, it's really frustrating sometimes when, unless you're brand spanking new, you've never been on a set, I think, just the basic time when you got to tell people to be quiet. And you got to keep telling them. And you got to keep telling them. And then they look at you and they get mad. It's we all know the job. We all know our microphones are picking up everything. And they still get mad when you have to tell them to be quiet. And it's really sad because they're adults, and this is the job we do. Everyone knows, hey, listen, unless you're doing a music video or something maybe, but on episodic and commercials and stuff like that, you're recording sound, but people still keep yapping.
Okay. How frustrating is it when it's the crew that keeps yapping?
Eternally frustrating.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
It's most frustrating when it's the sound department that keeps yapping.
Yes. Yes.
That's when it's most frustrating.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Agreed.
So a lot of people don't realize, behind the scenes and shooting a film, you're on what is in essence a very small town for about a month. For those of you who are on TV or movies, Gail, you get them for 2 days, but you're on for a very limited amount of time, but it becomes this little weird incestuous family where interesting relationships seem to be created, whether that is romantic or BFFs for the next 2 weeks, or I hate this person and I want to stab them to death. How do you deal with a bunch of personalities melding together for a limited amount of time and not allow them to go crazy, especially on location shoots?
Oh, they're gonna go crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I as an AD, as a first AD, I try not to get involved. I don't when you're done, especially when you're on location, a lot of people sometimes go out to dinner together and stuff like that. I try not to. I try not to get involved because the line gets blurry, and at the end of the day, I'm a manager. At the end of the day, I'm representing production and so on and so forth. And sometimes those lines can get blurry if you keep going out drinking with the crew and so on and so forth. And it's just, for me, I can only speak for me. It's just not a good look nowadays with this whole HR thing, how HR is really a lot bigger than what it is. If someone makes a move on another crew member and you're there, and it's just a lot of it's changed as well too, so for me personally, I just I don't even drink. So there's no need for me to hang out and go have drinks with them anyway. So I just try to stay away.
Yeah. I try to stay out of it as much as I can. I did work on a show where, a couple of shows actually, where two of the series regulars became involved. And I will say on one show, I, never talked about it. They operated like they were still single and not together. And the only time I had to acknowledge it, and these were two of the most professional actors ever. So honestly, I didn't have to really get involved with much with them other than tell them when to show up to work. But one day the guy doesn't show up, which after working with him for 3 years gave me pause. Now I'm concerned about his health and safety, right? And I was like, do I call the woman that I know he's in a relationship with, our other actor, to ask her, does she know where he is? Right? Do I admit that I know they're together, which I have avoided even addressing, right? And finally, I called him several times. He still didn't answer. So I said, I got to do it, right? Now I'm concerned about him. So I call her. I leave her a message because she didn't answer. And about 5 minutes later, she shows up, and, you know, I'm apologetic. And I was like, I know it's not your job to keep track of him. But I was concerned of, you know, and she was just like, you know what? If he were with me, he would have been on time. So I don't know where he's at. Like, she was just like, but it was just the most awkward thing on my end, because, you know, knowing they were together personally and how that blurs professionally, right? But for the most part, I try to pretend I'm Switzerland. I don't get involved with either side. I don't care who's dating whom. I just care to just show up. Are you prepared for what the day's work is? That's what I try to focus on.
Yeah, I have to echo that. I stay out of it. You know, I have my own wind down routine where I go for a walk, I have a nice dinner. I don't, after spending 12 hours talking all day, I don't really want to talk to anybody. So I don't mingle. I mean, I don't try and create new friends on a show. If I'm on there with people that I know, and we've already got an existing relationship, then yeah, we'll go out to dinner and hang out. But my goal is not to create new chums, because that just opens you up for so much. And like they were saying, you know, you are a manager at some level, and at some point you're going to have to, you know, step in and manage, and that can rub people the wrong way, especially if they think that you're closer than you really are.
Although, Scott, we did have an interesting situation on our film together, because our lead actress caught feelings for our lead actor, but she was also in a relationship, and our lead actor was not interested. And then the boyfriend came up.
Wow.
And things got a little bit weird, to the point that we had to move the lead actor out of his living arrangement to another place, because he didn't want to be at the house by himself.
Yeah,
And
that
he
reminds
moved
me.
into the crew housing.
Wow. Yeah, I did a show where the two actors, they weren't involved, but the male actor just, you know, he didn't want to rehearse ahead of time. And on the show, they were lovers on the show. And the actress wanted to rehearse it so she could sort of develop that, you know, closeness and intimacy. And he just did not want to do it. And so he ended up like cussing her out, and it just was all this offset drama uh that happened. And I remember I was the second AD at the time, and one day he cussed her out, and she cries off all her makeup. She's all upset, which then, you know, that's like an hour and a half to redo her or whatever. And the set's like, oh, is first team ready? And I'm like, well, we got a situation. Right. So it's just like, it's silly, but it does happen, you know.
I have a question. Do you think that part of like not getting involved, not, you know, going out for drinks and everything, do you think that that comes with age? Because, you know, I think like when I first started off, yes, right? Because you're all excited. It's your first or second project. Everybody's. Then a good 5 years in, I'm like, no. And I actually got accused. They're like, Cheryl, you're not particularly friendly. And I'm like, I do my job. I got
Yeah.
enough friends.
Yeah. I mean, some of it's age and some of it's situational. I will say, you know, when I was a second, I think I went out. And first of all, I don't drink alcohol. So when I think about going out for drinks, or like, you know, I don't, and I certainly didn't really drink alcohol in my 20s. So I'm just like, you know, I barely know you people. I don't necessarily want to hang out with you. I've been with you for 15 hours of the day, right? But I did do that. And I remember something came up the next day, completely unrelated. And my boss said, oh, well, I heard you were out drinking with the crew, and tried to say that that had something to do with my performance that day. And for me, that was the sort of trigger to say, you know what? No one needs to know what I'm doing when I'm not here. And certainly not have that play into my performance at work. So for me, that became a factor where I avoided going out, not necessarily because, I wanted to, but I was just like, it's too messy and I don't like it. So
I always consider, like, would I invite you into my home? No. Okay.
Right.
I don't need you in my, like,
Right.
in my mental space then either.
Well,
Right.
Nicci, you and I have been friends for years, and you just got into my house.
This is true. Cheryl never invited. It was always at my house. Was always at my house, but never invited me over. Actually, that's not true. She invited me over, but her neighborhood has really shitty parking, and at my age, if there's no parking, I'm not going. Not in LA. Not in LA. So, what's the pettiest thing you've ever done on set? Like, mine is always giving some actor that I know is going to be late, like a 2-hour earlier call time and making them sit there. Which maybe sometimes is not the best plan, but I've had to do it. But what's the pettiest thing you've ever done? Gail, I know you have something. I know you're just sitting there quiet, but I know you.
I wouldn't say petty, but there was an actress who it was a short, like, promo thing we were shooting, and they came late, and all their kids they brought with them, and then it was taking even longer in wardrobe, and around the set there was a lot of reflective objects, and I realized that this person, every reflective object became a mirror. And so before we even got to set, I was like, look, make sure let's take these things out of here, because they would stop and just, check themselves. I'm like, we don't have time for that. So I just made sure that no one brought any mirrors around. Every kind of reflective object was covered up or turned away, just so we could get through. Just talk to the camera. Let's go.
Yeah, I'll say the pettiest, because I'm not a petty person in general, and I also, in our role, my opinion doesn't necessarily factor in, right? My professional opinion based on knowledge factors in, but my personal opinion doesn't. So but I will say the pettiest thing that I
Professionally
have done.
petty.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Professionally pettiest thing is I've told an actor what I really think about their behavior. And normally you just work on solving problems and not, aggravating something. But I had an actress that was constantly late, and she had actually gotten talked to by a producer, and she came to work that very next day, and she apologized to me for being late, which I was like, oh, this is the first time in the history of my life and maybe the world that an actor has apologized for something they've done. But she then proceeded to make excuses for why she had been late. And then she said, I think the only person it affects is you, meaning me personally, her being late. And, I then had to tell her, personally, I don't give a shit if you ever show up. I get paid the same amount of money, whether it's you or not. Like, they could cast anybody, and I'll still be here, And I said, but professionally, I think it's fucked up because these 8 people are here waiting on you. And so, I just was like, are you kidding me? Like, I give no shits about you, basically. Like, so it's not about me. It's about respecting this whole crew. And of course, she's like, well, I'm never late for set because I'm ready on time and all this. And I said, yeah, because hair and makeup double teams you, which means they do her hair and makeup at the same time, which is not normally how it's done. And I said, and just keep in mind, they may not be doing their best work when they do that, which that was petty because I'm basically saying you might not look good.
Oh, I've done that to an actress. We were shooting a horror movie in December, and she wanted to wear this in the kill scene or like the fight scene. She was obsessed with wearing this white corset, but our budget didn't dictate that we could buy 5 of these $300 white corsets. for this fight scene. So I went and had the DP tell her it made her look fat.
Yeah, that's petty. That's petty.
I will say UPMs and line producers are much pettier than first ADs.
We really are.
Yeah, we are. Because we control the food. We control a lot of shit. We can make sure your favorite snack never shows up again.
Dang.
I've done that too.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
We're definitely pettier. Somebody in the chat asked who can fire an actor, and it really depends upon whether you're talking about television or film or commercials or whatever. But a lot of times it's the producer. It can be the showrunner. I have actually fired an actor and gone back and reshot on a independent film. He was just mean and nasty and horrible. And I talked to the director, and I was like, he's treating this crew and everybody around him like shit. And it was a 28-day shoot. And 3 days in, we fired him, hired a new actor, and then refigured with the first AD and reshot it. Because some people are just horrible human beings, and I just don't want them on my set. Actually, I fired a couple of actors. In independent films, it's a little easier to have that control to do that. So yes, I have, especially I have fired racist people, which has been fun when you're the only Black person on there, but that's for another day.
I got to fire a writer once, which was a good time, because that guy was insane and then stupid. So like, I can accept insane, I can accept stupid, but at the same time, like mean and stupid, no. And this guy came into my office screaming how we had added birds to his script. And I was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, dude. And through a screaming conversation, him screaming at me and me trying to decipher it, he had seen condors on the call sheet and thought we were adding birds. And when I explained to him that it was a crane, he was like, I don't care what kind of fucking bird it is.
Wow. This is why, education is important, guys.
For sure.
Reading is still important.
Speaking of cranes, Trusty was talking about cranes yesterday. I'm just going to laugh now.
That's the other thing. Trusty was made a speaker. If anybody wants to come up and ask our guests, I always tell, everybody is always so shy. Come on up. We don't bite unless you pay us a whole lot of money.
We just bark. And that's just me, because all the ADs on here are really nice. They're not screamy ADs.
Nah. If you gotta scream, you're not doing it right.
I was going to say, what do you guys, and I don't know if you actually have discussed this, but being a Black AD and making sure that you're very, what's a good word? Calm. Yeah. As opposed to some of your counterparts who like to scream at the top of their lungs.
Yeah. So I had a mentor when I was a PA. Good dude, hell of an AD, but he had a reputation of being unapproachable. The angry Black man sort of image, even though he wasn't. He was from Chicago. Chicago brothers have a different sort of feel. New York brothers have a different sort of feel. California brothers have a different sort of feel. So, but his reputation ended up getting him blackballed within the business. So, like, as his PA watching that happen, it made it really important for me to develop my own style that was stoic and calm, but assertive. And I think, like, seeing the repercussions of creating a reputation for yourself, was super important. One of the gaffers that I worked with would always say, you're really only as good as your last job. And I kind of took that to heart, because ultimately, you're seen by your resume and the shows you've worked on, but also from the relationships you've built, because this is it's a big town, but it's a really small town. If you really think about it, somebody knows somebody who knows somebody who knows you.
It's also very incestuous, and we only hire people that we know.
Right, because sometimes hiring people that you don't know can get you into a lot of hot water. I worked on a show a couple of years ago called Lioness, and that
love that show, Scott. Oh man, I didn't know you worked on that.
Me too. That's my fave.
That's one of my favorites. Absolutely, wow.
I did the first season, and talk about AD heavy. We had 8 episodes, and we had 6 AD teams.
Damn.
Yeah.
Nice.
But at one point, like in prep, we had this AD who was not from the States, and he used words in the office that, that would make anyone shudder. Just foul language. And he quit and took the DP with him before we started shooting. So we had to bring in a new DP, a whole nother AD team, and seeing like the latitude that some people have with just unacceptable behavior, and then knowing that had you said any one of those things, even once, even whispered it, that you would have been, handed your bag on your way out the door. There is a double standard. We got to be real about it. There's a double standard, and if you want to be successful, you have to learn how to like walk that line, where forceful but not mean-spirited, assertive but not aggressive. All of those. It's a balancing act, and once you can figure that out, then it's easier. But you have to realize that it's there first, and then you can act accordingly.
Yeah, very true. Very, very true.
Yeah. And some of what you're talking about is emotional intelligence, right? Like it's knowing what fight you need to have, but how to have the conversation. Because there's some people that view things literally as a fight. And you're like, this isn't a fight, this is a discussion, right? This is an exchange of ideas. And I think when you sort of change the spirit of what that is, it takes the emotion off of it. And I'll say that, for me, that was something that I had to learn, that nothing's personal, although it can feel personal at times. And I learned to try to listen to the words people were saying and not the energy they were putting on it, so that I'm not reactive to the energy, right? So that's something that I practice, because I don't necessarily expect humans to not be human, right? So sometimes people are upset, sometimes people are angry, or they're disappointed, or whatever those things are. And I try to diffuse or get behind the expression of those things and listen to the words, and work off of that. But yeah, there's certainly a double standard. And my favorite way to diffuse it is, well, what do you think we should do? And usually when you ask someone that swears they can do your job better or whatever, they have no fucking idea. And they will be quiet.
Yeah.
Or, what would you like me to do differently? And they have no idea,
Yeah, and sometimes you got to let karma, just handle the situation for you. Like that actor that would show up when he wanted to and wrap himself. One morning he was running late, as usual, and he had a car accident. He did a hit and run on the Universal lot,
Wow.
And yeah, so he came straight to his dressing room, was like, don't let anyone in my room. And I said, sure, okay, I'll call you when we're ready. 5 minutes later, lot security shows up, and it was my pleasure to go knock on his door and escort them into the room. Because at that point, I was like, I told you not to be late, allowed, but I don't have to have the conversation. I'm gonna let the lot security handle it for me. I'll see you soon. And after that, he was never late.
I generally ask people a lot of the times, like, what are you actually angry about? Which
Yes.
sometimes defuses them, sometimes it makes them even madder. But at that point, like, it makes them at least stop and think, like, are you mad at me? Are you mad at the
Right.
situation? Are you mad
Right.
at your husband because, like, he didn't make your lattes 125 degrees? Like, what are you mad at?
Yeah, nine times out of 10, it's not about you, right? When someone's giving you that energy, it has nothing to do with you. So I don't even react to it, you know? I worked with, and we used to constantly call people in earlier, and because the show just, we would move so fast and have to bring in, actors earlier. And one day, called this actress, and she cussed me out on the spot, which was uncharacteristic of her as a person. So I knew she was really upset. And later on, and when she did that, I said, well, can you come in at this time? And she's like, no, I got to do this and da 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 da. She's going off. I said, okay, cool. Well, what time can you come in? Right. Which is not something I would normally ever tell an actor. Like, they don't get to choose when they come in. But I knew that, like, this was a deal for her. And she said, oh, well, I can be there at this time. I said, okay, then I'll see you then. Like, don't, we're good. We'll make it work. Right. And later on, when I needed to give her information in person, to play light of it, I said, I'm going to give you some information, and I would prefer to not get cussed out today. So, and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, she had completely blacked out and didn't remember how angry she was when I gave her that information. She was like, I would never. I said, you did, but it's okay if you don't remember you did that. Like, but it's, yeah.
Selective amnesia. You gotta love them
Exactly.
for it.
Exactly.
The amount of time that we spend doing this cover your ass is like, if I could cut cover your ass out of my day, I could
Oh,
work
yeah.
4 hours less.
Word. Yeah, that's true.
What do you do when somebody curses you out? Whether it's an actor, whether it's the director, whether it's another crew member, because you're gonna get it, right? Like, first ADs and UPM/line producers, we take the butt of everything. However their day went. How do you deal with it?
Well, you stop right there in the tracks. No, there was a time that I was talking about the director earlier. I said he was not a nice person, a famous guy, whatever. He said the F-bomb to me. I said, listen, I'm not cursing at you. And I'm a kind of a big guy, and he's not as big. And I'm African American, so all that goes whatever he thinks. And I'm from New York, whatever. Not saying I use that for my advantage, but people think what they want about New Yorkers, black men, whatever. And I just said, and he knew I was from New York, and I just said, hey, listen, I'm not cursing. I don't understand why you're cursing. He said, you know what, you're right. I apologize. So he apologized right then and there. So I just think sometimes you have to stop it right then and there, because I feel if you don't, it just continues and it gets worse. And, one thing is, I'm all about respect. Like, I don't curse nobody out. I'm not going to curse you out, whether it's, and my whole thing, like, even if it's someone else's fault on set, I'll take the blame, because it's not about whose fault it is. It's just like, how do we fix it to move on, to make our day, So I think you just got to stop it right then and there, no matter what, and then continue. If you want to talk about it later, sure, we can, but let's keep going with it.
Yeah, I worked, when I was a second, I worked with a first AD that, yelled and cussed me out in front of the whole crew. And I'm definitely not an embarrass somebody publicly type of person. Um, and later on, we had a conversation about it. I actually quit, like, on the spot, and I ended up coming back to the show, and had a conversation with the guy, and he tried to tell me that it was his Italian fiery background that made him express himself that way. And I said, well, if we're taking it there, I'm Black and I don't play that. You talk to me like that, you're going to get knocked out. Right? Like if this is what we're doing. And we laughed about it, but it was just like, I try to meet people where they're at, in terms of like, I'm going to try to diffuse the situation. But it is that thing that like, you have to address it right away, that someone can't treat you poorly, and think that that's how they're going to continue to treat you. And once again, that's not something that I would say today, the way I dealt with that at that time. But I don't know.
I was going to say, I think in working in short-term projects, we kind of have an advantage, privilege, or however you want to say it, in that I've worked with a very famous director just once as a second AD. And I know now as a first AD, if I got the call, I would say no to working with that director, because I saw how they treated the crew. They treated, yelled and cursed. And I'm grateful to say I don't have to say yes to that job to work with that director. So, I would let them curse and just be like, I'm never going to take that job with that person again.
Yeah, I worked with a commercial director, very famous commercial director, as a PA, and his first AD was Black, but besides him, he and I were the only Black folks on his crew, and he was very loyal to his crew, so we always had the same folks. And one day, I want to say it was one of the last commercials I did with him. I walked up to set to talk to the first AD, and he looked at me and he was like, "So what is this? Bring your family to work day?" He said that to the first AD.
Oh, yeah. I want to throw a name out so bad because I know exactly who you're talking about.
Does it start with the letter P?
Start with the letter P. JP. Hey,
yes. Yes. Yeah. And at that point, I was like, I don't know if commercials are for me. I think I'm more in the episodic television world. But yeah, he was just a rude man. But here's the thing: he was rude with everybody. He was rude with clients. He was rude with actors.
That was his reputation.
That was his reputation. And Courtney said something earlier about, the day will grow or shrink based on, the schedule. He would make his schedule, but then, he would come out and play basketball before every shot and make everyone wait so that he could stretch the day. Because he knew he could do the day by lunch, but he wanted, to go 12 hours. So like, that can sort of control freak, mean-spirited sort of thing. You can feel that from people. And I try my best not to be around those folks because, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. Because, sometimes you bring it out, it'll come out. Even when you don't want it to, it can come out. So it's about managing those moments so you're not put in a position where you have to, without saying it, put someone in their place. It's difficult, but it's possible.
Yeah, I recently dealt with that with a camera operator that felt the need to tell me how to do my job, and coincidentally didn't know that I was actually directing an episode later in the season. But I think the assumption, which I certainly have gotten, is that, whether it's as a Black person or as a woman or whatever, that I don't have experience doing the thing that I've been doing professionally for over 20 years, right? And finally, I just had to tell the guy, and I was very proud of myself for not cussing him out because I had dealt with this for about 15 days straight. And I said, look, man, I don't tell you how to operate the camera. All I want to hear out of your mouth is set, camera set. That's it. Let me do what I do, and it shut him up for the rest of the season, and then later on when I'm directing my episode, all of a sudden he's like, you're really good at this. yeah, bitch, I'm really good at this. This is what I do. Like, that's what I thought in my mind, Um, it's like, come on.
Have you ever had the experience where you worked with someone in one capacity and they were a dick to you, but then later on you were kind of above them on the call sheet? Like, for example, I had a second AD who was a real dick to me when I first started out. And then on our next big, huge job, I was the coordinator and he was the key PA, and he didn't get to be a dick to me. And he kind of had to, stand there and take it a little bit. I mean, I didn't give it to him, but he had to take it anyway.
Well, that's why you should just be civil to everybody, right? Like, this is certainly a business where you never know where people are going to land, and ultimately be kind to everybody.
And I think that's a great place to begin to wind this up. Be kind to everybody. I think that our industry is known for not being kind. I think that we have a reputation for not being kind. It's one of those things, a squeaky wheel, but I find that there are more of us than there are assholes. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And to a very large extent, we can't afford it. Go ahead, B. Tracy. You can ask your question. Can you talk right now?
I can talk. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm enjoying the show tremendously. Great job, as always, Cheryl and Nicci Freeman. I'm a Dave, I believe it is. How you doing, man? I heard you say you was in Atlanta. What part of Atlanta are you in right now?
I'm good, brother. I'm out past the airport by Peachtree City.
Oh Lord, you way down there. Yeah, you down there with the Delta pilots. Yeah, I lived in Atlanta for 10 years, so I'm very familiar with the area. How you liking it? How you liking the area so far?
Listen, I've been here for a little while, but I guess I go back between here and LA. I'm in LA more than anything, but I like it. It's fine. It's quiet. Me being from New York, I got a big piece of land, I think, that actually has a big front yard and big backyard. So I enjoy it more than what I have in LA,
Right. Cool. All right, man. I just wanted to say hello. When I heard you was in Atlanta, I was just like, all right, I'm familiar with the area, so I just wanted to reach out. Again, great job, y'all. I'm enjoying the show.
Great. Thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it.
Before we go, real quick, because we got 5 minutes, what are you guys working on? Courtney, and then Gail, and then Austin and Scott.
Yeah, I'm working on getting a short film that I sold, getting the deliverables ready. The project Nnani was licensed to All Black, subsidiary of AMC, so I'm working on that, as well as taking meetings for directing. So, I'm available.
Congratulations. A friend of mine, Nicci, I think, who is it that we know Nicci Freeman over at All Black?
Yeah, it's Nicci.
Yeah,
Nicci Love. Yeah, yep. Nicci Love. Yeah. Good friend.
Yeah. Right back at yep. She's a good friend
great.
of mine too. Yep. So congratulations on selling your short film to All Black. By the way, if you want to put it in TIFF, I'm just going to let you know that right now I have a few freebies left for applications for this.
Nice.
So if you want to, just hit me up.
Once it's out, come back, and because we have the ability to show it in our pod. So come on back and we'll show it.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Gail, what are you working on?
I am available right now. As you know, Nicci, commercials have changed this last couple of months, and it's been a little spare out there. Things put on hold and then disappearing. So I'm available, ready to work.
Austin?
I'm like Gail. I'm available as well. I'm in Atlanta not just because it's my house is here, but I just got done doing a Chase commercial a few weeks ago and decided to stay a little bit longer, do some work on the house before I head home to LA. And just reading some scripts, breaking down some scripts for some friends right now. They're trying to get done and just trying to make a schedule. So looking for my next gig as well.
And yeah, much the same. I'm available, but in lieu of all the post-strike malaise, a couple of producing partners and I did a short that we're started shopping it in March. It's a proof of concept for a series. and developing some other projects that other partners that we're trying to sell. So keeping the iron to the fire, working on the step up, but still available to yell, rolling, and cut to anyone who needs.
Scott, my offer stands for you too. If you want to put in Toronto International Film Festival, the application, I have a couple of more freebies. So if you just hit me up, you know my number.
Yeah, I'd love that, because we were actually just talking about festivals last week, and Toronto was on our list. So yes, I will hit you up.
And also, as a hint, because it looks like it may happen. So Brenda Gilbert of Bronze Studios, who was our first guest and also a board member of Women of Color Unite, had a conversation with Cameron Bailey. WOCU may be having a panel at Toronto International Film Festival this year. So, or maybe even two. So everybody stay tuned for that. So yeah, if you can get your film, because I need to fill the audience, because y'all know I'm gonna talk my shit. Y'all know I'm gonna talk my shit. So with that being said, because I have a Zoom at 12 o'clock.
In the words of the ADs, that's a wrap.
That is a wrap. So first of all, thank you, Courtney, Gail, Austin, and Scott. Like I said, two of you I've worked with. I look forward to working with Courtney and Austin at sometime. Only if Scott's not available, because I know he was going to jump in.
Always here for you.
Thank you, Scott. And as per usual, I want to thank Nicci Freeman. I know I'm the host, she's the co-host. That's only because I was on Spotify first, but she's the one. This is really her pod. With that being said, everybody have a blessed day, and thank you again, my lovely, wonderful first ADs. And yes, UPMs and line producers are absolutely more petty.
The Women of Color Unite podcast is hosted by Cheryl L. Bedford and Nicci Freeman, produced by Nwabata, Nnani, and edited by Lauren Bonett. The music is by Oh Yeah, featuring Nayuta. Subscribe to the Women of Color Unite podcast to never miss an episode. If you want to submit questions or responses to this episode, you can send them to podcast@wokeunite.com. Find the show notes and transcripts for this podcast on our website at wokeunite.org, where you can also learn more about Women of Color Unite and sign up to become a member for free and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Please consider making a tax-deductible donation. Donations are what enable us to create amazing programs like our #StartWith8 career development program. If you're on social media, you can follow the podcast at WOCU Podcast, and you can follow Women of Color Unite at wokeunite.org.
Please stay tuned and join us for the next episode of the Women of Color Unite podcast, because we telling it like it is.
Need rebels and troublemakers to stand out, marginalized with voices making us so proud for identity in the industry. We all shout, so many women empowered making their own route. Like
ageism, racism, sexism
uncovered. They get together to form a force to prove the one that ain't gotta have a child to be seen as a mother. I'm saying
all power
to the women of color. Yeah. It's just a salute to Cheryl Bedford, leading activist in the community. She's bridging the gap and bringing all women together to fight for real inclusion amongst all the diversities. Keep going.